It was a bold move to catch counterfeiters and tax cheats off guard. While the rest of the world was watching the U.S. elections, India's Prime Minister making a surprise televised announcement to pull all... It was a bold move to catch counterfeiters and tax cheats off guard. While the rest of the world was watching the U.S. elections, India's Prime Minister making a surprise televised announcement to pull all 500 and 1,000 rupee banknotes. In a nation where two-thirds of all transactions are in cash, Narendra Modi knew there would be some unruliness in the days and weeks that followed what's being called demonetization. He's asked for 50 days patience. But was he really banking on this much chaos? An entire nation making a beeline for cash machines with farmers, shop sellers, and basically all those who don't have a credit card or live in town suddenly unable to buy and sell. Those who do have cash under the mattress have to get to the bank, however far, in what one Hindustan Times columnist calls perhaps the most economically and socially disruptive act the world has seen since China's Cultural Revolution. We'll put it to the panel whether or not that's true. Big blunder or the only hard remedy to cracking down on the black market in a nation where only 3% of the population pays income tax. Should Narendra Modi stick to his guns or go back to the drawing board? Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at the cash chaos in India. With us from from New Delhi, Sanjay Kapoor, managing editor of current affairs magazine Hard News. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Sadanant Dume is a Wall Street Journal columnist and resident fellow at the American Enterprise Institute in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the show. And we welcome back Jean-Joseph Boileau. He advises the CEPI Business Club and most notably the author of India for Dummies in French.
Exactly.
Thank you for being with us.
Yeah.
The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, the hashtag F24debate. Supporters of Narendra Modi insist he dropped enough hints that he wanted to crack down on those who stash cash. But with now cash machines even unable to process the new bills that have been put into circulation, India's 1.2 billion citizens have effectively been reduced to using the equivalent of $1 bills for their daily needs. 9 days on, the government tweaking its response once again. Thomas Waterhouse has the story.
It's now a familiar sight outside banks across India, from villages like this one in Assam to the streets of the capital. Millions line up to exchange their banknotes, which the government says no longer have any value. But with stocks of replacement money running out, tensions have mounted, and police are now struggling to control increasingly frustrated crowds.
We have money but can't use it. It's in our accounts or on us in cash, but we are unable to use it.
With just 4 hours' notice, Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced last week that all 500 and 1,000 rupee banknotes, that's the equivalent of about 7 and 14 euros, would immediately be withdrawn. That amounts to a staggering 85% of the country's cash in circulation. If they can handle the long queues, customers in theory can exchange these banknotes for the newly issued 2,000 rupee note. But with cash short and many ATMs running dry, the government has placed a weekly withdrawal limit of 24,000 rupees per customer. It's all part of Modi's grand plan to stamp out corruption and so-called black money.
This demonetization is a major cleanliness drive. This is not meant to disturb anyone, but I know it has inconvenienced some people.
That's somewhat of an understatement, with nearly every cash-carrying citizen affected. Even the 97-year-old mother of the Prime Minister was forced to come to this branch to exchange her banknotes. It's also a move that comes at a bad time, with millions of Indians sowing their winter crops or getting wed. In a bid to ease tensions, the government has announced this Thursday that farmers struggling to buy seed or marrying couples struggling to pay for their festivities can withdraw more than the government's weekly limit.
All right, and on that point, I've said Jean-Joseph Boileau, a political scientist, economist, but also concerned dad.
Yes, yes. My daughter is married with an Indian guy, and they are in a holiday, and it's terrible because they were in the Andaman Island, where they are going down in a small guest house, and they are not in the 5-star hotel, and they could not pay, the guest house because using a credit card is no use in the Andaman Island. They were lucky because they landed in Delhi and they had a lot of cash. They put everything in the bank. At least they're safe.
Okay, at least they're safe. How's it going for you on that score, Sanjay Kapoor?
Just next to my house there is a bank ATM which has long queues. It's very distressing. I was actually away when the Prime Minister announced. I was in Tehran and I was listening to the speech that he made, and I didn't really realize the implication till I started scrolling, checking on my Twitter, what my friends and other people were reacting to it. It looked really bad, and when I come back, I find that there is so much of distress and pain all around. People are talking about it. They just talk about how they'll get their next 1,000 rupees, and they haven't a clue. I mean, the entire conversation revolves around whether they've been able to manage the money that they really need to see the end of the day. I have a small little organization, but I have to worry about how I will put my cash component together. How will I pull out money from the bank and give it to my employees? So, these are
because let's talk about this concretely. You pay your employees in cash.
Not really. I mean, I pay maybe one or two people in cash because they don't have bank accounts. Rest of them I pay through check. But it has come at a time when, there are certain needs that have to be fulfilled in the office. Like, for example, I need cash to get my employees to buy tea, or some basic needs that have to be fulfilled. All that money is in a bit of a mess. And
so how do you buy tea, Sanjay? How do you buy tea at this point in time?
I mean, now, they have to stand in the queue, take out some money from the bank, and buy, it's not an everyday thing. You buy tea just once and it sees you through for maybe a stuff that you never think about.
Do you understand the Prime Minister's actions? Do you support him?
I agree. There was a colossal amount of black money, and there was a need to somehow take it out from the system, because I see the kind of fortunes people have made in the last 10, 15 years, and there was a need that, they were reined in. But I think PM did not take into cognizance the very inadequate and you would say a kind of infrastructure or administrative machinery that was not adequate to the task. And that is something that worries you, because even though the Prime Minister may have said that it will be sorted out in 50 days, but I think the pain is going to last longer. It will take far longer to replace the existing cash with the new denomination or new cash that the Prime Minister hopes that will come in the Indian society, Indian economy.
Sadanand Dume, you agree that the pain will endure much longer than 50 days?
That seems likely. I actually view this slightly differently. I don't think that this is essentially an economic decision. I think what Prime Minister Modi is betting on is that people would like to see him as a moral crusader who's out to clean up the system and are willing to bear a certain amount of pain for that. Now, how much pain they're willing to bear, what exactly the economic consequences of this decision are going to be, are still unclear. But as I just wrote in the Wall Street Journal, it's an audacious gamble, because this is by far the most consequential act of his 2.5 years in power, and one way or the other, he has to own this decision. So if it's going to work, he is going to do very well politically out of it, but if it backfires, I suspect it might backfire disastrously.
So it's make or break. Could he have done it differently?
I think so. I think, first of all, the first question is going after black money, the so-called illicit funds, is that the biggest priority that his government should have? Secondly, how much of black money is in fact stored in cash? The studies I've seen show that in fact it's a very small percentage. The truly wealthy and the crooked politicians and crooked businessmen, they keep their money in jewelry or in real estate or in stocks or in foreign bank accounts. So I do think that there was another way to go about it. I think that there is strong public support for the idea that he wants a cleaner economy, and he's banking on that. But I think most economists would not agree with his approach.
All right, strong public backing for the principle, but as ordinary Indians struggle, the resentment palpable on news that came out earlier this week that an Indian mining tycoon had taken over a royal palace and flown in Brazilian dancers at a reported cost of $75 million to celebrate his daughter's wedding. Up to 50,000 people were expected at the Bangalore Palace, a mock Tudor castle in southern India, to celebrate the wedding of Gali Janardhan Reddy's daughter on Wednesday.
I hear he's spending over 5 billion rupees on his daughter's wedding, while we're standing in line for just 4,000 rupees. How does he get so much money?
The regular people are struggling to get just 4,000 rupees, but when you look at the upper classes like politicians, actors and VIPs, you don't see them withdrawing cash.
The people who spend their money help the poor earn their livelihood. How is it useful for rich people to hoard their money? It doesn't help anyone. The money being spent here is helping to feed a lot of households.